going to a running specialty store, talking to knowledgeable staff. I mean, that I'll talk to New Balance. Like over the years, I've talked to, pick the brain of New Balance employees, like the people that send me my shoes. So I get feedback from them. You know, I definitely recommend going to a running specialty store over like a Sport Check store or something, where I know the people that work in Sport Check and they're just not as knowledgeable. So getting a pair of shoes, and once you find a pair of shoes that works for you, same with me, I stick with them. So I'm not always switching it up. I'm not always trying this or trying that just for fun. I like to stick with a pair of shoes and just buy a lot of those same shoes and just like, because running is what I enjoy doing, and finding a pair of shoes that works is nice. And then other gear, I actually, one of the transitions I made from high school to university to post university is, once I got the gear, I enjoyed running more. I remember running in high school I didn't like running in the winter, but my coach said you should probably run in the winter time, but I didn't want to, and I didn't put any effort into like dressing properly. I didn't layer. I just remember going out with these really thin splash pants on in like minus 10-degree weather, and every time my leg touched it was cold, and I hated every step of it. And then all of a sudden, it's like got more into it, and I started buying like real running gear, and I was like, oh, this isn't so bad, you know. Like I stay warm, and once you prepare for it and put some thought into it before you go for a run, then you can enjoy it more. So I like the balaclava in the wintertime. You know, I really like the wind not going down my back. So if I put some extra effort into buying that or getting that balaclava and putting it on, I'll enjoy that run more than on a windy, cold day in the winter than if I just went out there and I have to get this run in and just run out and not dress properly, and yeah, that's the long run for me. Yeah.
I've got tons of questions if you're I think I watched you guys. Was it Scotia or Toronto with the qualifying race? Toronto playing. And I think
it was both Toronto, Scotiabank, Waterfront.
In Toronto, yeah. And I think I might have seen Dave or Chris on a bike riding with you guys while you're racing. Now, the Olympics, I'm assuming they weren't allowed to do that. So does it make a big difference having your coach there?
You know what? I'm gonna not to downplay Dave or anything, but no, it doesn't. It doesn't. I like racing in Toronto, having the support, knowing going into the race, when it was really windy the past few days beforehand, knowing that there was going to be all those people out watching, and it was a lot harder for me to think about packing it in and not going for that time standard, knowing that it was in Toronto, than if I had been over in Rotterdam or somewhere else far away, and it'd be really windy and I was on my own over there. So having a support crew in Toronto was really nice leading up to it. Once you get into the race, it's I'll tell you, there was a group of about 60 Canadians at a bar. They took over this bar right on the course in London at the Olympics, and they were cheering, you know, Canada, you know, Dave was there and a bunch of Speed River athletes, and I couldn't even tell you where they were on the course. So I didn't hear them, like 60 Canadians, right? You know, like, and a lot of them cheering just for me, obviously, you know, my name and everything, and I couldn't even tell you where they were on the course. I didn't hear them. It was that loud, and so, but leading up to it, yeah.
So there's that mental toughness thing again. So you said Rotterdam, for example. So how do you, when you're running, oh, I should just pack this in, I don't know if I'm going to make the qualifying time, and it's so windy, and I'm getting tired, and it feels like I'm walking. Like, how do you get past that? Is it just an Eric thing that you do, or is it something?
No. We do actually work with a sports mental skills training. She's Kim Dawson is her name. She's a sports psychology professor at the Waterloo. Anyway, she comes to our group and helps us out. But so you get a negative thought while you're running, it's okay, but you need to push that negative out with positive straight away. Otherwise, it'll sit there and brew. So you get that negative, like, yeah, the wind's in my face. Yeah, it's silly. Yeah, you're gonna get those. You think about it for a second, and you're like, you let it sit, And then you start thinking about like why you're doing this and what you're gonna do when you cross that line and have your drink or something. And so you have to push it out with positives right away as soon as the negative comes in. It's kind of like
That's hard to do though.
it is hard to do. That's why you gotta do it in practice. You gotta practice it. Yeah. So it is hard to do, and the more you're enjoying it, leading into it, and then you get to that tough part, the more energy and reserves you'll have to, and the more positive to help you push that negative. So, yeah.
Did the thought ever enter your head that, oh, I've been to the Olympics before? It was part of you thinking, maybe I don't need to push myself. I've done it once. Did that enter your, and if it did, how did you get rid of that thought?
After 2008, when I made the Olympics, 2009, I thought things were supposed to come easier because I wasn't Olympian. It was not good. It was not good at all. I just kind of I was struggling a little bit in 2009 in that post-Olympic year of wanting more. So I set my goals higher after 2008, had a good year in 2008, went to the Olympics, and now I was supposed to achieve this much more, right? But instead of starting where my fitness was, afterward, I kind of started where I had left off in 2008, and then my where I realistically was and where I thought I was weren't matching, and I tried to kind of skip a step and jump to that next level, and I never got to that next level in 2009. So I had to step back in 2010 and start from where I was at and then work up. So yeah, the Olympian thing actually was a negative, and I didn't use it properly in 2009. Yeah, I just thought, I'm Olympian, I should be able to do this. Come on, I can, there's expectations on me, on myself, but it just never clicked. Never came around in 2009. But switching to the marathon was next.
One of the things you talked about that I'm impressed with is your cognitive skills, your skills when you're timing yourself for the last 5 seconds when you're free. I'm impressed by that because if I looked at my watch at that, I would be nowhere near the finish line at that point. But let's see, we're finished 10K now.
Again, lots of practice.
Just being able to put those thoughts together and know even though you were wrong, you're 1 second off, not 4. You're pretty close. That's impressive.
Yeah, we do that. I mean, it's all about time for us in a race like that. So the Olympics actually was completely different. I didn't look at my splits barely at all because it didn't mean much to me. I looked at the halfway split. I looked at a couple other splits. I was just going for placing. Yeah. Whereas in Toronto, I was going for a specific time, so it was in my head for 3 months beforehand. When I'm doing a practice and I have my Garmin on and I'm trying to run race pace, I'm looking at it all the time where I am in terms of race pace and if I'm hitting that race pace or not. So yeah, it was on my mind a lot beforehand.
Would you be
It came naturally. I was actually, if you watch that video of me coming down the home, I checked my watch with 80 meters to go, and the announcer, this UK guy, is like, I don't know why he's checking his watch, with 80 meters to go.
He's going to push stop and say personal best.
Yeah, exactly. But I was, again, I didn't even realize that I did it. I was just in this, run a few steps and then check. But I wasn't registering all the time.
If you ran, how do you think you'll be able to qualify for the next Olympics more easily, or?
Not if I keep if I have my 2009 attitude, no.
Oh, okay.
I automatically should.
No, you've gained the experience now, but you now know what it took to qualify. And was your Olympic race better than your qualifying time?
It was. They were both good experiences. They were 2 different races, but I took a lot of confidence from my qualifying race because it was windy and I still made it. I took that confidence into London, knowing that, hey, I could have run faster if it was perfect conditions. So even though I could have run faster if it was at another race, perfect conditions, I took that confidence that I still did it under the pressure in Toronto, and I feel like I wasn't happy with my race in Beijing, and then I was fortunate enough to compete in another Olympics, and I did what I needed to do. I adjusted during the race to have the best possible race I could for that one, and that gives me the confidence that I can do it again in the qualifying and in another Olympic race.
So when the weather does not cooperate, like the wind or the freezing rain, that's also one
Sure.
of the worst factors. I guess they'll show you how to overcome, it's like overcoming an obstacle. So
Yeah.
it's not always perfect, but at least I guess in that situation, when it's windy, you know how to overcome it.
Yeah, it's so easy to dream about the ideal situation, but it rarely happens. So if you're able to adjust on the fly and set realistic expectations, set realistic goals for the day of, you know, or even once you get into the race and how you're feeling in a race or how you're feeling on a training run.
I would say it's raining like last time in Scotia. Last
Yeah.
year it was raining and it was wet and I'm like, oh, you know, it was wet and miserable.
You have to think about, what do I want to get out of this run, and then whatever it is, who knows, right? Everyone has a different reason for running, and you know, you have to think about that reason, and then think about how you can.
Or sometimes when it's really hot, like when it's some type of press up.
One quick thing, one last thing I'll talk about is the heat. So I ran in that crazy windy day, and it slowed me down probably maybe a minute to a minute and a half. Then, like, I potentially could have ran a minute to a minute and a half faster than that if it wasn't windy in Toronto. But the heat, I ran 2:16 in London, and I was happy with it. So much slower, 3.5 minutes slower than my race in Toronto. But I was happy with that race. So heat will slow you down way more than wind will. So be careful in the heat, and drink lots of fluids, and be realistic on those training runs and on those.
Let's say
those
you
races.
do a race day, it's like really, really hot, like to the point
Be
where.
okay with running slower than you do
Yeah.
when it's cool, because everybody does. Everybody does.
Eric, thank you so much, and
Yeah.
also for taking a little bit more time with us. But
Thanks
Eric-
for sticking with me, guys.
Eric is not done, because he's actually going to take a short run with so you'll get a sense of exactly what a 3-minute
Oh, yeah.
will possibly feel like, or look
I'm not
like in
going
any
there
case.
today.
You're not going there today, but thank you very much. And in terms of questions, there's still lots of Eric around to be able to ask questions that didn't get answered in a public setting that you want to kind of whisper into your ear. Thanks again very much for coming. Thank you for all coming, and I hope we can do a whole lot more of these, because you truly are inspiring in
Thank
terms
you.
of the
Thanks for
small
having me.
things we're trying to do. Thanks again.
You're welcome.
Great.
How many people were planning on going for a run?
Not bad.
Anybody? Yeah.
You're tired, you have.
Yeah,
No, it's tough listening. You guys have very good listening skills. I'm serious. I took like a course last week